On the day Jason and I got engaged, I discovered that my fiance and my younger sister had become romantically involved. I accidentally overheard them professing their love for one another, and the revelation nearly made me ill. Jason and I had maintained a long-distance relationship for 7 years, starting from our sophomore year of high school up to the present. Throughout those years, Susan, my sister, had always trailed me, addressing Jason as her brother. To me, they had always appeared as siblings. While Jason treated Susan like a sister, her true feelings toward him were unclear. Susan is my younger sister from my father's side. We share the same father, but have different mothers. My parents divorced early on, and my father, who had always been proud of my talents, concentrated his attention on me. As a child, Susan was endearing with her plump cheeks and tendency to drool, and she loved cuddling with me while sleeping. However, as she approached kindergarten age, her innocence faded. She occasionally showed signs of resentment, blaming me for things beyond my control with statements like, "Dad, if you want to hit someone, hit me," or "I'm so scared when you two argue. Sister likes it, so give it to her." I didn't understand then that she was manipulating the situation, and my father's attitude toward me deteriorated over time, especially since my stepmother is Susan's biological mother. My home life became more unstable, and I threw myself into studying and dancing, hoping to earn my father's greater affection, but it never happened. He always accused me of bullying Susan, while she silently endured it. When I started dating Jason, I thought I was cautious around Susan, and things were fine during the first 2 years when I was in college, and she was still in high school. By the time I graduated, Susan began making advances as she entered college. Every weekend when Jason and I had dates, she persistently tried to reach out to me, claiming sisterly love. I attempted to distance myself, but she would cry, saying things like, "Sister, do you not like me anymore? What did I do wrong? Tell me and I'll change. I'm so sad when you treat me like this." I would dismiss her, while Jason acted as a mediator, arguing that Susan was still young and liked following me, so I shouldn't be too harsh. We had multiple arguments over this issue. He accused me of being unreasonable, while I felt he didn't understand or have the right to interfere. Our relationship almost ended because of this, but it didn't. Later, when Susan clung to me, Jason stayed silent, allowing me to handle the situation. I work as a dancer named Sue at the Provincial Cultural and Arts Troupe, where Jason is a programmer who has recently become a project manager at a private company. Young and promising with thick hair, Jason was seen by everyone as my perfect match. Many people asked about our engagement ceremony. Before marrying, we needed to hold an engagement party first. We booked a hall at a local 5-star hotel known for its duplex design, featuring dazzling crystal chandeliers and a long spiral staircase. The first floor was for guests, and the second floor housed dressing rooms and lounges. While I was doing my makeup in the dressing room, I noticed my sister looking stunning in her dress, accentuating her best features, unlike me, who typically wore t-shirts and jeans. Her lipstick matched her outfit perfectly, and I joked, "Is this what they call a man killer? I'm so clumsy. I don't know how to apply makeup. Can you teach me in the future?" She looked ecstatic as she replied, "Okay," though I couldn't tell if she was genuinely innocent or just pretending. After all these years, I didn't like her, and it was clear she was still pretending to be close to me. "Sue, it's almost time. I'm going downstairs to be with Mom and Dad," Susan said hastily, exiting and leaving the makeup artist in awe. "Your sister is so lively and naive. Everyone is dressed elegantly for this event, but she's wearing a t-shirt and jeans," the makeup artist commented. I smiled without replying, knowing some things are better left unsaid to outsiders. Jason was late picking me up, and no one answered my calls. I contacted a friend downstairs who told me Jason had already gone upstairs. Trusting my intuition, I got up and walked out, swaying my dress. Next to the dressing room was a lounge with the door slightly open, and I could hear voices. Approaching, I heard Jason say, "This is the last time I'll call you brother. From now on, you'll be my brother-in-law. I feel so sad. Sister is so happy to marry you. You're such a good person. Sister must have saved the galaxy in her past life." Susan replied, "Brother, what should we do? I really like you." Jason responded, "Susan, don't do this. Sister and I are about to have our engagement ceremony." The room went silent. I hesitated before pushing the door open, revealing them already on the couch with Jason passionately kissing Susan, one hand inappropriately placed under her dress. I was frozen, realizing this was supposed to be our engagement scene. They showed no shame. Susan was the first to notice me, and they scrambled to get up, she with her hair messy like a bird's nest, and he in a wrinkled suit. "Sister, it's not what you think. Sue, let me explain," Jason stammered, standing beside Susan. Their positions were too obvious. When had they truly started their affair? Even if today was the breaking point, they must have been flirting for a long time. I looked at Susan, trying to force a smile. "It's not what I think, it's what I saw," I said to Jason, sneering. "Your words say no, but your actions speak otherwise. We don't need to cancel the engagement ceremony, just change the bride. On the bride's side, Jason, we're done. Act as if I never knew you." I turned and left, tears streaming down my face as years of love were effortlessly destroyed. Susan followed, grabbing me and falling to her knees, slapping herself across the face. The sharp sound echoed downstairs, leaving only her pleading cries in the vast space. "Sister, forgive me and Jason. This time, it wasn't intentional. I was mentally prepared to call him brother-in-law. We didn't do anything wrong. Please believe me, and let's proceed with your engagement properly," she begged. Her words made me laugh in anger. How could we continue with the engagement under these circumstances? Should we ignore the obvious problem? Jason stood by the lounge door, motionless, watching Susan and me, mostly focusing on Susan with a pitiful look in his eyes. My heart sank further. How had I not realized sooner that they had lost control of their feelings? "You two are something else," I muttered furiously and fled downstairs in my 9-inch heels and long skirt with a wide hem. I lifted my skirt to step, but someone stepped on it from behind, causing me to tumble down the stairs like a rolled-up dumpling. The pain in my body was more intense than any scream. Everyone rushed to my side as I struggled to stand, only to find my right ankle immobile. As a dancer, I knew the difference between a sprain and a fracture. A chill ran through me. "Quick, take me to the hospital," I demanded. It was the darkest moment of my life. I had lost my lover and jeopardized my career in a single day. My ankle was shattered, and the doctor said I needed surgery with a steel plate, and I might never dance again. In the hospital room, several dancers from the troupe turned away, wiping away tears. Jason knelt by my bedside, blaming himself and repeatedly promising to care for me for a lifetime. Susan stood at the ward door crying incessantly and occasionally glancing at Jason like a wronged little wife. I ignored them and my stepmother, who, unable to bear the situation, pitied her daughter. "It wasn't your sister who pushed you down. Why are you making such a fuss? It's just a lost leg for you, but for her, it's a lost love," she said. I felt nothing but emptiness in my heart, not just toward Jason, but toward the entire family. I looked at my stepmother calmly and said, "If Jason prefers her, can I break her leg for you?" From that day on, there was no need for me to pretend. My stepmother and I had minimal interactions, mainly when she told my father to inform me that she had packed up all my belongings from childhood to adulthood, asking me to move out to free up my room. I nodded and handed my house key to my father, requesting his help to move my things so as not to take up their space. Jason visited me every 2 or 3 days, but I ignored him, telling him to leave. He would silently cut fruit for me, offer me water, and say that once I recovered, we would get our marriage certificate and he would take care of me for a lifetime. On the other hand, Susan came every day, crying and begging for forgiveness. I told her to leave, but she would kneel and wail, fearing that others might not understand how remorseful she truly felt. Whether by chance or otherwise, Jason saw her kneeling multiple times. Whenever he looked at her, he displayed the same pitying expression as that day. However, when he glanced at me, he appeared hesitant, almost as if he was urging me to treat Susan with more kindness. Eventually, the two of them shifted from leaving separately to departing together, no longer concealing their emotions. Another patient began to talk about Jason, initially saying things like, "Your boyfriend seems nice," and "Your sister's boyfriend is a good friend. He's so caring towards you." The older sister wondered what she could say, perhaps admitting that she had sacrificed a lot for this couple. She barely encouraged them to leave, pleading, "Please, both of you just go. Instead of putting on a show here, why not go on a date and be intimate?" She added, "Didn't we leave things unresolved last time, Susan? Please don't be like this. Jason and I are just friends. We didn't do anything. If it bothers you, we won't have any contact in the future." Frustrated, she rolled her eyes and declared, "Stop it for the rest of my life. Please don't appear in front of me again." Susan began to cry once more. Jason pulled her away and left without looking back. My father had placed the packed items in my living room. 4 woven bags stuffed with clothes, books, photo frames, basic skincare products, slippers, toothpaste, and chargers, all thrown together carelessly. Using my cane, I selected the useful items and then contacted the recycling station to collect the old clothes and books. My relationship with that family ended after 22 years when they excluded everyone from the family photo except me. I transferred some money to my father to thank him for raising me. The Cultural and Art Museum offered me a new office position, which was neither exhausting nor demanding. After work each day, I would lean on my cane and watch my former partner dance. Dancing had always been my true passion, more important to me than Jason, which is why I resented Susan. If she hadn't stepped on my dress that day, I wouldn't have fallen down the stairs. The envy and loneliness in my eyes were starkly visible in the mirror at the practice room. The deputy leader personally introduced me to a part-time position at a children's arts center opened by his friend. They needed someone to lead 6 dance classes on weekends, hoping I could help demonstrate movements and train the instructors when possible. Initially hesitant, I was persuaded when he said, "Think of it as a break. Your dancing skills are exceptional. It would be a waste not to use them. Talented individuals can shine anywhere, not just on stage. Sue, they need you." The dance classes occupied and enriched my weekends, leaving no time to dwell on other matters. The innocent smiles and lively eyes of the children brought me both life and redemption. I understood the deputy leader's good intentions. The burdens of life that are too heavy to carry alone will eventually compel you to accept and adapt in the best possible way. 1 month after leaving the hospital, I discarded my cane. As long as I avoided strenuous activities, my mobility was comparable to anyone else's. I still yearned to dance and practiced basic moves, demonstrating them to the children without putting weight on my right ankle. Occasionally, I cautiously tested my right foot's condition, holding on to a faint hope that I might dance again. 6 months later, on a Saturday night, I interacted with a man named Peter. There was no class that evening, so I was practicing choreography alone, trying to see if I could jump properly. With the new year approaching, the art center was preparing for a performance, and I was creating a dance routine for the children. During a simple jump, I carefully controlled the height, but my right ankle still couldn't handle it. I touched the ground, and Peter quickly rushed over, half kneeling in front of me with concern. Though we weren't acquainted, he was related to one of my students who had been picking up the child. He seemed to care more about the child's dancing than the mother's, always asking about the child's condition after school. That day, something unusual occurred when Peter hurried to me. My focus shifted from my foot to his shoes, shiny leather shoes which weren't permitted in the practice room. Noticing me staring, he promptly removed them, holding them in his hand with a relaxed smile. "I've never met someone like you. Injured, but still worried about keeping the floor clean. It doesn't seem to hurt anymore. Do you want me to take you to the hospital?" My ankle was fine. The pain had subsided since the initial moment, and I felt I could manage it without hospital care. Peter assisted me in changing shoes at the doorway, then took my coat and bag from the shelf. He casually mentioned that his nephew was learning painting at the center on Saturday evenings, as if explaining his presence there at night. He reminded me to use my right foot less to avoid worsening the injury. Finally, he helped me downstairs and watched me get into a ride-hailing car, apologizing. "If I didn't have to pick up the child, I would have taken you home." I didn't pay much attention to his words and had no intention of letting a stranger drive me home, so I simply thanked him and left. That evening, I ordered a robot figurine online. The following week, when Peter came to pick up the child again after inquiring about the dance performance, I took out the figurine box from my bag. "Thank you for your help last week," I said. He was surprised. "It was just a small favor. Do you really need to thank me like this? Are you worried about owing me?" I replied, "It's just a little something I saw while shopping and thought you might like it." Unsure of what to say, he accepted the small box with a smile, saying, "I like it." At that moment, several children who hadn't left yet hurried over, including his niece. "Teacher, do we have one too? We want a gift too," they said with eager eyes. I couldn't help but smile and took out lollipops, chocolates, and fish sausages from my bag to share with them. Their faces lit up with joy as they eagerly grabbed the treats and dispersed. Peter, watching the scene with a smile, asked, "Did I make you spend money?" I shook my head. "I bought these for them. Since becoming a teacher at the center, I often buy small snacks as extra rewards." After receiving my gift, Peter offered to take me out for dinner. "I'm sorry, but I already have plans with someone else," I responded. To my surprise, half an hour later, I found myself sitting in a nearby steakhouse, cutting meat with a knife and fork and taking small bites. Peter was standing with the child next to my table. "What a coincidence," he said, pointing to the couch across from me. "Your company didn't show up." I smiled calmly. He must have had something come up last minute. "Do you mind?" He gestured toward the couch again. What can I say? I can only smile and say it's better to meet by chance than by appointment. Peter was more talkative and humorous than I was, making me feel a bit out of my element. His niece, Cindy, kept glancing at him with curious eyes. I followed her gaze, and Peter chuckled. After maintaining a parental image for so long, it's hard to go back to normal. The child isn't used to it. Cindy snorted through her nose. Peter showed a loving expression, ruffling her head. Cindy rolled her eyes and snorted again. I felt a pang of envy at their family dynamic. Since my mother left, I had no contact with her. My father's attention was solely on my stepmother and Susan. That evening, I received a friend request from Peter. He had added me through a business card exchange from Cindy's mother, which is how I learned his name. He sent a photo of the robot figurine I had given him, placed on his desk next to a laptop. "Thank you, I really like it," he wrote. "You're welcome," I replied. After that, Peter occasionally liked my social media posts, and sometimes I returned the favor. Through these interactions, I unexpectedly discovered that he knew the leader and deputy leader of our provincial art troupe, and their relationship seemed quite good. However, what Peter did wasn't apparent from his social media posts. He might have restricted some content from my view. Jason occasionally checked in with me through messages. "How's your foot? Doing much better?" he asked. "Thank you. Although we're no longer lovers, we don't need to be enemies." I never blocked him or considered doing so because adult estrangements often drift apart. It was Susan who continued to send affectionate messages and privately reached out to seek forgiveness. "Sister, can you forgive me? Sister, you're so wonderful. Many guys like you, but I only have Jason. I can't leave him. Sister, which ring do you think looks better?" She sent a photo of a string of diamond rings, one almost identical to the engagement ring I had. Previously, I often felt overwhelmed whenever Susan reached out for forgiveness and flaunted her new relationship. My responses were usually brief, but she would typically reply by complimenting me and expressing her love. One day she wrote, "Sister, you must be upset with what you said. I feel so down, especially since it's the room you've lived in for over 10 years. I sighed, turned off my screen, and muttered a curse under my breath while staring out the window. Peter, sitting beside me, chuckled softly. I looked at him, silently accusing him of enjoying himself while someone else was distressed. "You know," he remarked, "when you roll your eyes, you look even more lively and cute than usual." I quickly responded, "Are you kidding me? How come my eye rolling is so noticeable?" Peter didn't immediately answer. Instead, he pursed his lips and smiled slightly. Cindy, sitting in the back, added, "Sue, my uncle wishes he had eyes on you." Peter glanced at Cindy through the rearview mirror and smiled. I turned around, pretending to be serious. "Kids don't talk nonsense." "I'm not talking nonsense," Cindy replied, looking provocatively at Peter and imitating an adult's tone. "My mom said, 'How old are you? You can't even pursue girls properly. You have to use your niece as a shield.'" I felt instantly embarrassed. Peter seemed uneasy as well. He raised his left hand, rested it on the window frame, rubbed his temple, and tried to ease the awkward atmosphere with a smile. Catching me off guard, he said, "Sue, don't you remember me?" I genuinely didn't remember until Peter partially reminded me and directly stated it. I recalled that, a year ago, after every performance, someone would send a basket of flowers signed by Peter. We had met once after a show when Peter, along with the troupe leader, invited me to perform at their company's annual meeting, promising good compensation. I had declined, saying I needed to visit my boyfriend's hometown to meet his parents. After that, neither Peter nor his flower baskets appeared again. It struck me like a bolt of lightning. Do you think, Sue, now that you're in my car, I can finally win you over? Peter asked with a playful smile. The sudden realization in my heart gradually faded, replaced by a mix of relief and disappointment. I was just an ordinary woman with normal desires, longing for someone to care about me. Who was I compared to a star? I chuckled to myself, shifting my gaze outside. City lights were beginning to illuminate. I was merely a dancer who might never return to the stage, an administrative staff member at the provincial arts troupe, and a teacher at a children's art institution. "You're the brightest!" Peter's voice came through again, deep and slow as if he had been contemplating. "Sue, shall we give it a try?" The car was quiet as I considered for a moment before agreeing. Peter turned out to be an ideal boyfriend. Every morning, he'd drive halfway across the city with fresh flowers to pick me up for work. In the afternoons, he'd collect me after work, and we'd have dinner together before he'd drive me home. This routine was consistent from Monday to Friday. On weekends, when I worked at the art gallery, he'd spend the entire day with me. He would either work on his laptop in the parents' lounge, occasionally glancing at the monitors, or stand in the corridor by the classrooms, secretly watching me. Honestly, this level of care and attention was something I had never experienced from Jason. It was sweet. The troop leader teased me after seeing Peter several times, saying, "It's not easy to be patient and watch the moon rise from the clouds." The deputy leader added, "When's the wedding banquet?" I didn't know how to respond. My relationship with Peter was just beginning, and marriage seemed far off. However, Peter smoothly continued, "Thanks for the well wishes. I'll keep working hard. And you, please say a few more good words for me and help bring Sue home sooner." The troop leader and deputy leader exchanged meaningful glances as if encouraging me to agree. I remained noncommittal. In private, the troop leader asked, "Are you really clueless or just pretending?" I was confused. The troop leader explained that Peter was a famous, wealthy bachelor worth billions, ruthless in the business world, but had a soft spot for me. I should take the opportunity. I, however, hesitated. I knew Peter was well off based on his car, attire, and mannerisms, but I hadn't realized just how much until now. I felt unworthy and subconsciously wanted to back away. Unsure of what to do, our relationship reached a stalemate. I didn't want to commit, and he didn't want to back down. We were more than friends, but not yet lovers. A receptionist at the Children's Art Institution spoke with me about Peter. "Peter is so handsome and elegant. He really cares about you. Every time he's here, while other parents focus on their children, he's always watching you. His affection is obvious on his face. The last time you fell, his face turned pale instantly. Before we could react, he had already rushed out, not even taking his phone. It's true love." I remembered that incident when Peter rushed into the dance studio, half kneeling before me, first nervous, then smiling, asking if I was okay. He effortlessly explained why he was there, helped me get dressed, carried my bag, and escorted me downstairs, but avoided accompanying me home. So considerate. "When did you start having designs on me?" I asked him, smiling as we sat in his car that night. "I heard you were single," Peter replied, not avoiding the topic. I felt I couldn't miss this chance any longer. Instead of waiting for someone else to make you happy, I thought I should take a shot. I believe I can do it better than most men. His voice grew deeper. "I was afraid you might make a wrong choice, settling for someone inferior to me, and even more afraid that you would regret it." In the background, Nordic folk music played ethereally and chilly. I looked at him. It was the most heartfelt confession I had ever heard. "Peter, I'd like to go see a movie," I said. At the movie theater, I allowed him to kiss me. Sometimes in relationships between men and women, crossing a certain threshold naturally leads to the next step. Peter was apparently a kissing enthusiast. Every morning, after giving me a rose, the next thing he'd do was lean in and kiss my lips. After I got in the car with my seatbelt fastened, he'd lean in for another kiss. Laughing, I said, "That's enough in public." He chuckled and touched his mouth, still seemingly unsatisfied. I've been thinking all this time, those few kisses just didn't feel enough. What to do? I didn't respond. He continued on his own. "Sue, why do you smell so good?" Jokingly, I replied, "Probably just mouthwash." He joined in the laughter. When we arrived beneath the art troupe building, the familiar routine repeated. "Kisses, kisses, kisses. You've got to control yourself. Everyone you know is watching." I lightly pushed him away. "Everyone in the troupe knows I'm pursuing you. What's there to control?" Peter said, embracing my waist tighter with one hand. "Besides, I've already exercised a lot of self-control." His words trailed off as his gaze dropped to my lips. My heart raced, and my mind filled with inappropriate yet beautiful images. I almost wanted to run away. A low chuckle came from behind. I never knew that being in a relationship with a mature man could be so sweet, even sweeter than a first love. With Peter, he knew exactly when to act and when not to, giving me the utmost agency in his words. After taking 99 steps, I'll extend my hand on the final step. You just have to place your hand in mine. And that final step, he would still take it as long as I didn't retreat. It would all be fine under the night sky beneath a towering clock tower. Peter held me close, regret lacing his voice. "I missed you for so many years." At that point, I was already on my way to meeting my boyfriend's parents. "If you show up now, you'd be a homewrecker," I mumbled in his arms. Remember, we hadn't even reached the point of meeting each other's parents yet. It was as if I were a thorn in his side. As he held me tighter, his nose rubbing against mine, he added, "Apart from seeking my wife's opinions, my marriage doesn't need to concern anyone else. Whoever it is, they're just being informed. So, wife, when do you plan to marry me?" I remained silent. I decided to retract my assessment of him being a mature man. We had only taken 999 of the agreed-upon 1,000 steps, and he was already trying to cross the last one, assuming the title of wife without consulting me. "Are you with someone else now?" Jason's booming voice echoed over the phone, interrogating me without even using polite language. I was taken aback. "Jason, we've been broken up for so long. You and Susan have a child. Can I have a boyfriend?" I shot back, "What child? Have you forgotten?" "We're engaged," he declared. "It was you hugging Susan that day, wasn't it? That's when we ended things. You're not cut out for this kind of deceit." "What breakup? When did I ever agree to break up?" she retorted. "You've been the one avoiding me all this time," he continued. Peter took the phone from my hand without hesitation. "Jason, isn't that right? I'm Peter, Susan's current boyfriend. Please stop harassing my girlfriend or I'll have to involve the police." As Peter finished speaking, he hung up and immediately blocked Jason's number. I stared at him in disbelief. "That's my phone. Did you just block someone without my permission?" He smiled. Sometimes a girlfriend needs to listen to her boyfriend. He handed the phone back to me, revealing his possessive side for the first time. Jason and Susan must have noticed me with Peter that very day because following Jason's call the previous day, Susan appeared at my doorstep outside the art institution's practice room the next day. I saw her standing just behind Peter, chatting as if they were merely concluding a conversation, her face beaming with a smile. My heart skipped a beat. I had been hurt by her once before and feared she was trying to recreate the past. "What are you doing here?" I asked, filled with more hostility than when she used to pester Jason and me. Peter approached, glanced at Susan with a raised eyebrow, seemingly questioning something. Susan looked resentful. "Sister, I miss you." "It's been so long since I last saw you," she continued. "Mom and Dad miss you too. When are you coming back?" she asked Peter earnestly, then turned to me stammering, "Peter, please talk to Sis for me." Unable to contain my anger, I tried to leave, but Peter caught up and asked if I was upset with him for talking to other women. "I'm not mad at you, I'm just uncomfortable," I sighed bitterly. "Peter, we've only just met, and now we're supposedly brothers and sisters. I didn't ask her to call me sister." Peter smirked confidently. "Sue, are you jealous? How about you call me brother too?" I glared at him as he persisted. "If you call me brother, I guarantee no one else in the world would dare to use that title." I rolled my eyes at his serious expression and couldn't help but laugh. What a twisted sense of humor, such a disgusting nickname. As it turned out, Peter indeed had a warped sense of humor. Later, during specific moments like arguments or intimate times, he would switch to using that nickname. Over the years, Susan developed an affection for Peter. Whenever I had something, she would admire it and often take it away. After that encounter, she frequently visited the art institution on weekends, ostensibly to apologize to me. But in reality, she was just trying to get closer to Peter. "Be careful of your little sister. She's like a tea serpent," Peter warned. I had rejected her numerous times, but she kept coming back, I acknowledged with a grunt. My time with Peter wasn't as extensive as with Jason before, but for some reason, I had faith in him. Men of his caliber could easily have beautiful women with just a gesture. He didn't let me down. "I don't appreciate being called that, Susan. You'd better address me as Peter or brother-in-law, even though you're my sister. Please respect yourself. Whether I'm good or not has nothing to do with you. I don't want Sue to misunderstand. I am not your Jason. Your tactics won't work on me. I can clearly tell a stone from a gem." These were the words the receptionist conveyed to me, along with some compliments. "Peter is so handsome," she said. "He interacts with Susan with a commanding presence. I've never seen a man reject a woman so firmly. You should get married soon." After Susan clashed with Peter, she sought my attention persistently, refusing to give up. She cried in front of our parents, picked up their children, and asked if I was still angry with her because I was blaming her. She explained that this was why her brother-in-law, Peter, was ignoring her. She admitted her mistake, stating that she only had one sister and nothing was more important than that. She asked how she could be forgiven. Did she have to kneel and beg? She cried intensely as if fainting. Moments later, many onlookers pointed fingers. "How can siblings hold grudges? Isn't it natural for an older sister to yield to her younger sister?" I sighed in frustration. Who says the older sister must always give in to the younger one? What if the younger sister is deceitful? I addressed the crowd. The best way to handle such manipulation was to confront it publicly. At my engagement ceremony, my sister confessed her love to my fiancé, and they ended up entangled in infidelity. My sister stepped on my skirt, causing me to fall down the stairs and break my leg, rendering me unable to dance. She acted overly sorrowful and delicate, frequently kneeling to apologize and forcing me to forgive her. "Would you dare to have a sister like that?" I pointed at Susan. Her mother responded, "I only lost a leg. What she lost was love." I couldn't comprehend how she, the third party, could label it as love. It was even more absurd that while I was in the hospital, she was seeing my fiancé behind the scenes. She asked her mother to evict me from the house, wanting to transform my room into their lover's nursery. After months of no contact, upon seeing I had a new boyfriend, she returned. My voice grew louder, expressing the truth in anger. "Susan, have some shame." The spectators shook their heads, seeing through Susan's fake tears. "I can't believe she's crying so pitifully." It turned out she had been pretending to be a third party and pushing Sue down the stairs. Such a person deserves public condemnation. Sue didn't take it further. She had crossed the line. Did seeing Sue with a good man make her want to seduce a new brother-in-law? Shameless. The biggest difference between acquaintances and strangers is that acquaintances, bound by courtesy, only gossip behind one's back, while strangers insult openly, making it harder to endure. At the engagement ceremony back then, many people seemed uneasy but stayed silent. Susan fled, covering her face. Peter stood firmly by my side, smirking with one hand on my waist. Seeing Jason again after a full 10 months, he looked more haggard than ever, with deep dark circles under his eyes, cracked lips, and a cut on his chin from shaving. If not for his neat attire, well-groomed hair and shoes, and the bouquet of roses he held, I might have thought he had just emerged from a coal mine in Shanghai. "Let's make amends, Jason," he said, rushing over and handing me the roses along with a jewelry box. His colleagues, who had witnessed the previous drama, looked at me curiously. I nodded, intending to make it clear to Jason. "We have no relationship anymore. Please don't bother me. You should give the flowers and jewelry to Susan. I have no interest in being a third party. I have a date with my boyfriend. He's arriving soon." Jason frowned, finally realizing that I was the one he truly loved. He admitted he had already broken up with Susan, claiming she was a jinx. Since being with her, he had been unlucky. His colleagues ostracized him, he lost projects, and nothing went right. He said I was his lucky charm, that when we were together, everything in his work seemed to fall into place, and he hoped to start anew. He opened the jewelry box, revealing a sparkling diamond ring, the same one prepared for our engagement, but left unused. Susan had once taunted me with this ring, saying, "Leave this ring for someone else. I don't need it." It turned out, hearing someone speak when you no longer love them is torture. When Peter appeared at the company's entrance, I was almost elated. I had only one thing to tell Jason. "Sorry, my boyfriend is here. If everything goes smoothly, I'll marry him, so don't come looking for me anymore." Peter and Jason, honestly, I had never compared them before, but at that moment, seeing both together, the only word that came to mind was inferior. Peter's tall stature and handsome face exuded an elite aura, both inside and out, while Jason, with empty eyes, looked as though he hadn't slept in days. More importantly, Jason seemed to recognize Peter. His eyes showed hesitation, mostly disbelief. And finally, he stammered, "Peter?" then quickly left. "Is this your way of intimidating a rival?" I asked Peter. He didn't answer, instead changing the subject. "I just heard someone say they're going to marry me. That was just a tactic. Don't take it seriously." "Peter, this isn't a strategy," I responded, my voice slightly wavering. Peter reached into his pocket and took out a jewelry box, extracting a ring he clearly had kept for this moment. "Let's put it on first so we can dispel the lies. Otherwise, we'll have to do it again." I hesitated. We had been together for less than 3 months. Was it too soon to agree to marriage? What about the 999 steps we had agreed upon? Peter seemed to sense my doubts. "Don't worry about it. It's just dispelling lies," he said casually. "Would proposing be that easy? How can you skip the red wine, roses, chocolates, followed by a lavish dinner and citywide fireworks?" I hesitated further. The ring he gave me was clearly expensive, with a diamond at least 3 times larger than the one Jason had given me. "It's fake," I said. Sensing my uncertainty, Peter slid the ring onto my finger. I laughed as I hung up the phone. Some people think they're clever, dancers who can't dance, painters who can't hold a brush, singers losing their voice, or social media stars losing their looks, all essential for their survival. For me, dance wasn't just a career, it was a dream. And life itself. I visited the art troupe to see Sue, 38, college 49. She stood outside the practice room, watching others dance through the glass door, her expression moving me deeply. Sue wasn't a prodigy. She became our troupe's lead dancer solely through hard work. The troupe leader had said, "Unfortunately, her choice in men isn't good." I had chosen the Children's Art Museum for work. Cindy was already studying there, and I took on the role of picking up and dropping off the kids, making my sister's life more relaxed, which she teased me about. "Cindy, you better support your uncle in the future. Whether you get an aunt depends on you." Cindy agreed readily. From then on, I had the chance to interact with Sue. After school, I would ask about her child, and she never grew tired of answering. Trying to adapt to this new life, the only concern was that Sue often danced secretly, testing her injured foot. I sat in the parents' rest area, eyes fixed on her, palms sweating. The rest of the story you all know. She fell. I helped her up, and we finally began our relationship. Dating, kissing. The feeling of being in love was wonderful. Sue was sweeter and softer than I had imagined. I regretted not being bolder back then. As for Susan, I firmly declined her advances. Women like her are common in life, thinking they're young and beautiful, believing that by offering themselves, men won't refuse. They think conquering men means conquering the world. Jason not only blinded his eyes, but also clouded his judgment, choosing stones over stars. I blame him. The only thing he did wrong was that since he chose Susan, he shouldn't have lusted after a past flame. He handed the disgusting old engagement ring to both Sue and me. I slyly hinted to the boss of the software company that our African branch needed staff to develop it. Jason was sent away with a plane ticket. It took half a year for someone to operate on Susan's leg, mirroring Sue's injury. However, her luck was worse. She broke both her shin and ankle. My wedding with Sue took place 6 months later. I, Peter, sought likes and comments online to wish us well, saying, "May all the lovers in the world finally become one."